All right, I'm going to do the video upload right quick. All right, I'm the Shock Exchange. I'm here with Mr. Mitchell Corson. This is on Trump and the G. It's Cori Bush to Fani, Willis of Missouri. So it's a lot to unpack. But as far as the economy is concerned, it's pretty much the same old, same old. A lot of it depends on what the Federal Reserve does. As far as, at least for the stock market, it depends on what the Fed does or what Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell intimates. It's still a poor economy for the majority of Americans. The corporate media is going to keep talking about the vital signs, which, in my opinion, aren't real. It's just almost like, I wouldn't say make believe, but it's being massaged by the Fed, and it looks like unemployment's low and there is growth. No, it's just printing money and giving it to a very small segment of society who's benefiting from this asset manipulation or spiking asset prices, which have been going on for a decade. But the majority of people are being crushed. Wages aren't growing, and it's only going to get worse for the majority of Americans. And now you have oil prices rising because there's conflicts in the Middle East, still conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, and those type of conflicts aren't usually good for the trade of oil or the transport of oil, particularly in the Middle East. And so as oil prices rise, it's creating inflation, it's creating a cover for Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, not to lower interest rates because there's inflation. However, this is not the type of inflation that's driven by consumer spending or rising demand. It's just rising oil prices due to oil shocks and supply shocks, and maybe bottlenecks and an ability to get to transport oil, or a shock to supply. So when the supply declines, all of a sudden prices go up, and people cannot get around oil prices. They have to have gas to drive to work. They have to have gas to heat their home, so on and so forth. So this may give Jerome Powell cover to at least say he won't cut interest rates anytime soon, but I would imagine he'll come around before the end of the year, around election time. So that's going to drive the stock market. The Fed watching, probably too much Fed watching pursuant to the stock market, but it sort of is what it is. I think the economy is still stagnant for the majority of Americans. So that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that wasn't talked about is how, which I think goes to the things that we've been saying for the last how many years at this point, right? That these people, will just blatantly lie to our faces. One of the things that didn't get any real news coverage to me, it's like, how do you fudge job numbers where, you're talking about millions of jobs, new jobs being created, but when those numbers were actually audited, and instead of over a million new jobs being created, only 10,000 were. It's like, how did like how do you just how do you not almost put somebody in cuffs for that when we're talking about public confidence, because you're giving the impression that the economy is booming. You're telling us that an unemployment rate, lowest in history, almost at 3%, like 3.2, 3.5, which all becomes nominal, because when we look at the real numbers, unemployment is closer to 9%. So, these same folks that literally changed the definition of recession on us, and told us that we are not in a recession, but we truly were, because we had more than two consecutive quarters of negative growth. So what more can we say when, these folks are just blatantly lying to us? And obviously it's an election year. The incentivization to prop up an illusion of how the economy is doing doesn't take any real analysis, real thought. We can see what the why folks would be incentivized to do that, why this administration would be incentivized to lie to the American public, because obviously the better that they look, irrespective of how the administration has actually done, matters more to them. And we get on here and we sound like a broken record, because unfortunately, it's not. It's not getting better. I suppose we can thank our lucky stars that we aren't Canada. Where food prices, people are paying, going to Costco, which is verified. Food prices are unfathomable. Where 8 pieces of chicken drumsticks at Costco are running 200 Canadian dollars. I mean, even when you convert to U.S. dollars, are you fine paying, 160 U.S. dollars for 8 drumsticks? So, I guess that's the silver lining is that we aren't Canada, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the long and short is that um, we're not doing great as a country, and I think markets are finally catching up with that as the first set of earnings have come out. Banks are giving a more complete picture between what the Fed has been saying and some of the economic data releases, such as PPI, PMI, CPI, the laundry list of economic data that we watch to get a more clear picture and understanding of how the real economy is doing, not just the stock market. But the 85% of small and medium sized businesses, mom and pop shops that are the true backbone of the economy and support the majority of households in this country. So, the stock market is finally realizing that a lot of that data was being fudged and was propping up a narrative. And some deep corrections have been happening, and we should expect more, frankly, before any true rebound. But that's where we are.
Okay. And some people said that the Dow. Whoever thought Dow hit 40,000 to begin with, really. But okay. So on to bigger and better things. I think we're going to be talking about these issues for a while. As former President Donald Trump is being prosecuted around the country, but one of the most talked about cases, and the cases that could have legs, is the case down in Fulton County, Georgia, where Fulton County DA Fani Willis is investigating Trump and several others, like Rudolph Giuliani and several others, for alleged election interference during the 2020 election. And she's filed RICO charges against them. There's also a RICO case against Young Thug and YSL group. And the RICO cases may be creating a bottleneck down in Fulton County, Georgia. I know the YSL case is almost hard to swallow because it's hard to get to the court system. They talk about maybe having court on the weekends just to catch up or keep pace with, the docket. Because these lawyers that keep arguing back and forth. They're talking about having appearances on the weekend. But, the defense threw a monkey wrench in the case for Donald Trump a couple months ago. Mike Roman, who's one of the co-defendants, his lawyer accused Fani Willis of inappropriate relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade and recommended that she be disqualified from the case. And, some people think that the case was thin to begin with, so they could get her disqualified. That would have been the end of the case because nobody else would have taken it in the state of Georgia. No lawyer worth his salt or, worried about his reputation would take that case. And so they were saying that this guy Nathan Wade had never even tried a federal case before. He was like an ambulance chaser or personal injury attorney. And there were 2 other lawyers in the case. One was a RICO expert. Another one had federal experience. And the DA had paid Nathan Wade $750,000. Had paid the other 2 lawyers maybe $180,000 combined. And they were saying that they were using $750,000 to fund her lifestyle. that he was taking her on lavish trips, Napa to Napa Valley cruises, and wining and dining her on taxpayer dole. And it was all a ruse. The whole case was a ruse for them to make money and get publicity. And that it was he was using the money to trick off. She was paying him, and she was getting a sort of quid pro quo, and that he was giving it back to her in terms of funding her lavish lifestyle. And they were also dating. It was also romantically involved. I think he filed for divorce maybe a day or a couple of days after he was assigned the case. So it all seemed rather squirrely. But shortly after the defense attorneys filed a motion to have her disqualified, Fani Willis went to a black church, Big Bethel Church in Atlanta, and gave a sermon. Practically gave a sermon saying, crying racism, and saying it was, politically motivated, and saying that, she had 3 attorneys on her staff, but they only attacked the black man. 2 were white, and they only attacked the black man. And what people don't realize is that when these people get into these situations, these defendants, they'll say or do anything to get out of this case. They will say anything and do anything and try anything. So don't give them an out. So she's crying racism. Kind of find out couple of weeks, days later, that it was actually a guy by the name of Terrence Bradley, who was Nathan Wade's former law partner, who was the one who spilled the beans. He was the one who told Mike Roman's defense attorney that they were dating. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were dating, and he asked, the lawyer's name Ashley Merchant, asked her, was he in trouble? Did he need a lawyer? And he's worried about his own hire. He threw them under the bus, saying they were dating as far back in 2019, which conflicted with what Fani Willis and Nathan Wade said, where they were dating in 2020. After the case started, he said they were dating back in 2019. So, and make a long story short, they appeared in court. Fani Willis appeared in court, and she said that, they did go on lavish trips and they were dating. It's her personal life. She's not on trial. They went on lavish trips. They dated. They had a romantic relationship, but she reimbursed him with cash she had on hand. So there was no paper trail. Right, you couldn't see any money being taken out of the ATM. You couldn't see any checks from her to him to reimburse him. And she said she was reimbursed with the cash on hand. She had laying around the house, and her father gave her advice to always keep cash on hand. His father justified, saying all black people do that. Blacks are known to we're taught to keep cash on hand. And I'm not sure he did a survey, but he basically says it's a black thing you would understand. And so she got out of it. There was no paper trail. The story seemed rather fantastical, but there was no paper trail. So the court and the defense pretty much couldn't do anything. But how the judge handled it, he kind of split the baby. He said there was an air of mendacity around her testimony, her and Nathan Wade's testimony. Even Terrence Bradley, he came to court and walked back his former comments. So he can't remember why he told the defense attorney that they were romantically involved. He couldn't remember why. So he, under oath, he tried to walk those comments back.
Right.
And if there was obviously if there was an award for Scary Negro in the movie, he probably would have won an Oscar. Because when I think of Scary Negro, I think of the guy from Hollywood Shuffle when he said, why you be shooting me, man? I ain't got no weapon. He's practicing his line in Hollywood Shuffle. And then you got the Wayans guy asking for the activator. Give back my activator.
Oh yeah.
And then ultimately you have the guy from A Soldier Story when Denzel came back from the MP had fished him out, had brought him back from the rain. They were trying to catch the train, couldn't catch it, and came back and told the other guy, told his cohort, "You told it, didn't you, boy? You told it, didn't you?" And that dude was scared to death. His companion was scared to death, and just basically told everything he knew. But to make a long story short, Terrence Bradley tried to walk those comments back in court. They say he didn't remember why he said those things. The judge says it's air of mendacity, which is not something you want to be labeled with if you're the DA. But he split the baby and said that either Nathan Wade or Fani Willis had to recuse him or herself. They had to pick one, and Nathan Wade ended up recusing himself. The case is going forward. However, and then Nathan Wade and Fani Willis are no longer dating. But the bigger picture seems like Fani Willis may be using her position as DA and resources from the state to trade for sex. That's what it looks like at a high level. So
I think at the very, really, I think to that last point, kind of colors for me what it boils down to, and something that we ultimately have addressed several times, is an abuse of power, right? Which in a lot of ways, not only violates the public trust, but breaks actual laws. In the case of Fani Willis, I think at the very least, for her, because she, frankly, beautifully defended herself. Which, listen, when it's all said and done, she may be, she just might be the next Johnny Cochran, right?
I mean, I hate to say it, I hate to say it publicly, but I do have a begrudging respect for her after that testimony. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying,
It's like, who you want in your corner, right? Like, if your back is against the wall, so it's like, a bit of admiration that I had to tip my hat off. So the way she danced between those raindrops didn't skip a beat either. So not even Fred Astaire was was that Singing in the Rain? That was Fred Astaire, was it? Gene, one of them. But at the very least, it becomes a question of ethics, right? Is this an ethical violation? Because maybe you didn't break any laws, right? Maybe you stayed within the gray of regulation and policy, but quite often, that bending, the bending of the rules, will get caught in the question of was this ethical? And the way that this relationship was handled, was it in an ethical way? And I really think that's where this ultimately lands. Ethical violations, don't tend to lead to, jail time, right? Ethical violations, I think, more often lead to some kind of civil penalties, right? So just monetary penalties. Maybe she gets a slap on the wrist, supervisory oversight, things of that nature. But I think that's really what it just kind of boils down to. Because even with all of this going on, she still pressing forward with the Trump investigation, right? And still trying to maintain this, again, a little bit of admiration, right? Because you got YSL, you got, which arguably could be a career enhancing case. Obviously, Trump, former president, is certainly a career enhancing case, and you have the state itself pinning you against the wall, and for her to be able to dance through the raindrops, evade the state, still hold on to both cases. Listen, that's I'll take 8 episodes of that over Power any day. Sell 50 cents to get on it. Oh man, because that's real life hustle right there. But at the same time, it's certainly just offline. This isn't the only case where we're watching. Um, Interestingly enough, the state actors, judges, DAs, AGs, and the like, that are finding themselves in positions where there are ethical violations, questions, just outright being fired for an abuse of power. Another judge was just recently fired, and her defense, or part of her defense, was much the same sentiments as Fannie Willis. That it's racism within the system, right? And not to say that there isn't any. I think without even having to teach it to most Black folks within the U.S., we understand that is part and parcel of this judiciary system. So, but I think it's interesting that leading up to being caught, right, leading up to enjoying the fruits of the very system that you're now crying racism. Once you're in this position, well, was it racism when you were spending the money? Was it racism when you were, what? Where was that energy when you're taking these funds and using them in ways that really do violate the office that you're holding, right? And the expectations that come with the office that you're holding. It's like you kind of have to pick a side, right? You're not being pinned against the wall because you're misappropriating funds to, educate third grade Black children to increase their test scores, to put food on families' tables, to decrease the homeless population, right? Like, in other words, you're not misappropriating funds to do things that benefit the same community that you're now essentially using as what I'm going to say is a prop for your defense. It's like, I come from a community that is marginalized, come from a community that has been historically discriminated against, and that's true. But at the same time, your decisions to essentially live ultimately a selfish life, say, hey, I want to have some fun too, I want to go on some trips too, but you're doing it on the public's dime. That's the issue, right? And so it's like, if you're doing these things that are only benefiting you, only benefiting your lover, then why bring the rest of us in it? Like, why is that your defense then? Because we certainly didn't have fun on the trips that you were taking. You didn't take us with you on the trips. You didn't spend with the rest of us. It was a few folks that got the benefit from that. So I just find it, really interesting that when the back is against the wall, that's the fallback. And
Right, right.
it seems to be a pattern that I've been recognizing from state actors that hold certain positions of power, and that are in positions where they have access to funds, access to power itself. But within this last year, um, have been called out, pinned against the wall by the state itself, by the counties they work for, and essentially the greater judicial system. Some, are having outcomes like Fani Willis. Others are being fired and possibly facing some jail time because of their actions. Um, Even another recent, I believe she went as far as U.S. attorney, I believe out of Kentucky, uh, labeled as the most evil white woman that ever lived. Gentleman was locked up for 25 years, wherein which she knew she's now facing prosecutorial misconduct. Um, and she knowingly set this gentleman up, who was, of course, was black, um, despite the victim even coming forward, I think 4 times, no less than 4 times, to tell judges, prosecutors, the police, anyone who would listen, that she was coerced in giving a certain testimony. And we're talking about, at the time, a young 20-something-year-old mother of two, young black girl, and felt so guilty that after the testimony, when she found out the verdict, she attempted to unalive herself. Like this, the weight of that. And this woman was the former U.S. attorney, was allowed to retire. They're now calling her back, obviously, in court, but at the same time, to retire from public office, you've been there minimally 20 years. So you've had a reign of terror for 20 years. In other words, so. All in all, I think it's just pretty interesting that we're seeing kind of a fact pattern um, building over the last year of women in positions of power, and kind of falling back to either racism or sexism once they get caught, as
Mhm.
their reason to, I guess, for the court to show them some mercy.
Yeah, and the it's funny that Trump's lawyers, Trump's defense attorneys, or the defense attorneys for all the defendants, said that it was illegal to introduce race into the trial. It was illegal, and what she did when she went to the church was unethical, and it was illegal to try to prejudice potential jurors against the defendants,
Right.
to bring race into it. But anyway, so um, that's that, and so again, it seemed like she was using her position of power to trade for sex, and so now we get to Cori Bush, who's the incumbent congressional congresswoman out of Missouri, the first congressional district in Missouri, and she's running against Wesley Bell and Trump and the G's own Maria Chappelle Nadal. And 20,000 foot level, I know Cori Bush very well. However, I don't live in the state of Missouri, so she and the squad are getting a lot of publicity, and a lot of eyes are on this case. Not excuse me, a lot of eyes are on this election. A lot of eyes are on the squad because AIPAC and a lot of well-heeled, wealthy, Jewish donors are trying to purposely donating to their competitors to get the squad up out of there, whether it's her or Jamal Bowman, AOC, whomever. But people think that Cori Bush, of all the members of the squad, Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman could be the most vulnerable. So anyway, so she's accused of using her campaign funds to pay her then boyfriend for security services. So back in January, it says that this is from Politico. It says that Cori Bush confirmed Tuesday that the Justice Department was investigating her campaign spending on security services stemming from payments to a former security guard she married last year. And she spent $130,000 on private security, not including the last quarter report. And that the Missouri Democrats' office has said Bush's relationship with her husband had predated her congressional tenure. So it gets back to something similar to Fani Willis, where she was dating this guy before the trial with Trump. and that she was dating this guy before her congressional tenure, and her campaign paid $42,500 in the first 3 quarters of last year for wage expense and security services. In particular, the nature of these allegations have been around, she says, have been around my husband's role in the campaign. She said, in accordance with all applicable rules, I have retained my husband as part of my security team, so on and so forth. So she keeps focusing on her husband. They're focused on the fact that they were dating before she became Congresswoman. So is she using her campaign funds to trade for sex? That's the question. And this is from the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. I'm going to read this specifically because you get into like a lot of she parses a lot of words when she speaks. She makes a lot of strawman arguments, but this is what the issue with this group says that federal law prohibits federal candidates from soliciting, receiving, directing, transferring, or spending funds in connection with an election for federal office unless the funds are subject to limitations, so on and so forth. It says that one of the prohibitions from campaign funds is, one prohibited category is spending for personal use. And personal use could be, services I'm going to incur normally. Like if I'm going to buy groceries, normally I shouldn't be using campaign funds to buy groceries, but services I'm going to use normally. Okay, that's where the definition of personal use get in. And is personal use paying someone who for security services not an authorized security guard? That's the question, I think. And so it said personal use means any funds in the campaign account of a present or former candidate to fulfill a commitment, obligation, or expense of any person that would exist irrespective of the candidate's campaign or duties as federal office holder. If a family member provides bona fide services to the campaign, any salary payment in excess of the fair market value of the services provided as personal use. And personal use also includes gifts greater than nominal value, so on and so forth. And they lay out that she made payments of $225,000 to Peace Security, and $63,000 to Courtney Merritt, who was then her boyfriend, and she later married, and $50,000 to Nathaniel Davis. It says the payments to Merritt were bi-monthly in the amount of $2,500. However, reportedly, Merritt does not have a St. Louis private security license, which is needed to perform security service in the area that encompasses Bush's entire district. Nor does he appear within the government database of licensed security professionals in the Washington, D.C. area. It says that it was recently revealed that Bush has had a personal relationship with Merritt since before she took office in 2021. They were married in February 2023. And then there's a question whether these are bona fide security services that she's paying for. Let's see. It says here that in this case, Bush and Merritt clearly had a close relationship that resulted in marriage, and there are other factors present, namely that the payments were regularly made at the same time the campaign was apparently paying a security company for the exact same services, and two, the payee did not have a license to perform the services for which he was paid. So she's paying someone for security services, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why is she paying him too? And then he doesn't have a license. So I'm just gonna try to play this video of her giving her explanation. Then we'll walk through it. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, everyone. The Congresswoman is going to deliver a statement. She is not taking questions. She will just be delivering a statement.
Come down.
Which way, buddy? Good? Everybody good?
Scott, you're leaning in. Yeah.
All right, so first and foremost, I hold myself, my campaign, and my position to the highest levels of integrity. I also believe in transparency, which is why I can confirm that the Department of Justice is reviewing my campaign spending on security services. We are fully cooperating with this investigation, and I would like to take this opportunity to outline the facts and the truth. Since before I was sworn into office, I have endured relentless threats to my physical safety and life. As a rank and file member of Congress, I am not entitled to personal protection by the House and instead have used campaign funds as permissible to return security services. I have not used any federal tax dollars for personal security services. Any reporting that I have used funds for personal security is simply false. In recent months, right-wing organizations have lodged baseless complaints against me, peddling notions that I have misused campaign funds to pay for personal security services. That simply is not true. I have complied with all applicable laws and House rules and will continue to prioritize the rules that govern us as federal elected officials. In particular, the nature of these allegations have been around my husband's role on the campaign. In accordance with all applicable rules, I retained my husband as part of my security team to provide security services because he has had extensive experience in this area and is able to provide the necessary services at or below fair market rate. These frivolous complaints have resulted in a number of investigations, some of which are still ongoing. The Federal Election Commission and the House Committee on Ethics are currently reviewing the matter, as is the Department of Justice. We are fully cooperating in all these pending investigations. In September of last year, 2023, after conducting a months-long investigation, the Office of Congressional Ethics found no wrongdoing and voted unanimously to dismiss the case. I look forward to this same outcome from all impending investigations. And I am under no illusion that these right-wing organizations will stop politicizing and pursuing efforts to attack me and the work that the people of St. Louis sent me to Congress to do, to lead boldly, to legislate change my constituents can feel, and to save lives. Thank you.
Have you spoken to a judge? Have you gone?
Okay, quickly, I'm just going to walk through some of her statements. She makes a lot of straw man arguments, and what she does is state facts to get you on her side. Whether those facts address the issues I've laid out previously, we don't know. But she said I have endured threats. Probably is a fact. I'm entitled to personal protection, which is a fact. No federal tax dollars were used for personal security. It's a fact. So it's a little different from Fani Willis, where she says she's using campaign funds. She says right-wing organizations have filed complaints against me. See, she says these are coming from right-wing organizations. It's like implies a political attack. And she says her husband. She used her husband for personal security service, which she's allowed to do. She never mentioned that she used it when she was her boyfriend. So I'll let you weigh in on some of the because you have to get to the actual fact pattern and then what the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust said versus what she just said. So I'll let you weigh in.
So I thought a couple of pretty interesting things. So before, one of the amounts that came to light is that I think since 2018 or so, the total amount that she spent since 2018 for the security is over $750K. So kind of thinking about that or knowing that fact and then listening to her specifically bring up this point where she says, I don't know if you caught it, but she says that she hired her husband at or below market rates, right? And I think, whether it was her or, she had her staff, kind of shop the statement before ultimately saying it, kind of work through the statement. I think a lot of it is preemptive, right? Like she's addressing some of the critique, and I think she's also jumping ahead to where like the next level of critique is going to be. All right. So one of the things, he's not licensed, right? He has extensive experience, but he's not licensed. Does that make it wrong to hire an unlicensed person? Well, if you're getting them below market rate, you see what I mean? Like it's
Right. What she's doing. What a lot of politicians do. They talk about technical matters in front of people who don't understand the subject matter. She's not talking to the people who are investigating. She's talking to her constituents and to the public. I hired my husband below market rate. She never said she hired him when he was her boyfriend, and she never said that whether there's no such thing, whether it's allowed or not. Period. If if he's not licensed, and you have a personal relationship with him, there's no such thing as below market rate because you shouldn't have been paying him at all. You know what I'm saying? So that's the issue: is whether $1 to him is a gift because he's not licensed, and you have a relationship with him.
Right. It's going because it's like where does that line become more visible? And just where is that line? Because you're a household, right? You benefit from his income, unless you can show that the two of you almost live wholly separate financial lives. Although you're in a financial contract, that's what marriage is. Marriage is not about feelings and emotions and even love. Sorry to burst the romantics bubble, but marriage is a financial contract. Full stop. That's all it is. At least in the U.S., that's what it is. And so you're agreeing to take on the financial debt of the other spouse. You're agreeing to take on financial obligations for the spouse. So, in other words, the presence of this financial contract, along with the IRS recognition that you're in the same household, then it makes it extremely difficult to show that although we're paying this person and I have a line that is allowable under campaign finance laws that I can spend on private security. But to your point and to the DOJ's point, are you materially benefiting from that income that your husband is getting? And is that benefit a violation of campaign finance and ultimately misappropriating of funds? And I think that's really the harder part that she's, going to have to dance through the raindrops to prove. I don't think anyone is arguing, even I think the last show that we talked about. I absolutely agree that they should have security.
Right.
Even pointed out APAC as well as other Jewish organizations. Or was that you? I think you pointed that out. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Pointed that out, which is true. I think they have now funded, to my understanding, about 10 of some of the January 6th insurrectionists that are running against some of the Democratic incumbents that are pro-Palestinian or have not supported or shown pro-Israeli support specifically, even if they haven't specifically given any pro-Palestinian positions, but they are pro-Israel either. So the point being is that you have an active campaign out there being heavily funded. We just talked about Wesley Bell as one of those, and as of recently, seems like he's winning the funding war. He has a larger war chest than Cori Bush presently, and certainly larger than Maria Chappelle Nadal. So, the long and short is that obviously when you have folks out there that are helping to fund people that are actively coming after you, not just verbally, not just politically, but physically. And that is a reality that some of these politicians are dealing with. We spoke to that last show. You have governors that are attempted kidnappings and militias, growing militias within this country that are targeting politicians that they largely disagree with. So that is a very real issue
But
amongst politicians.
it
And
depends.
government
It seems
that they can't protect themselves or at least do what they can. Because as she stated, she's not a senior member of Congress, so it's not something that's automatic for her. But it is. It still is that question of, are you materially benefiting? I'll say that as we, at least amongst Black folks, you see this commonly where a person will have experience, but maybe not the license, the schooling, the education. They don't have the degree. They may not have the certifications. So you know what? Hey, I feel like I don't necessarily fault that. Um, that he's not licensed. I think maybe over the past year, the question or maybe the demand should have been, okay, if we're paying you, um, I need you to go get that license, baby. I need you to I need you to
right. So that's the issue because they're not questioning the amount. Her detractors are not questioning the amount she paid. They're questioning,
right,
did she pay it to, she paid it to her boyfriend. She never mentioned her boyfriend. She said her husband. So
right.
it raises the issue. Could it be could she be trading her position for sex? First of all, secondly, you basically said the same thing. The mayor of St. Louis said that these black women are being harassed. You can't blame her for wanting to protect herself. The issue is they're not questioning the amount. They're questioning, why are you paying someone you're person involved with who doesn't have a license? Is that against the rules? That's a fact pattern. Either it is or it isn't.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's it. Yeah. No need for sympathy because she knew the rules. You know what I'm saying? She knew she knew, and she also heard anyway. She said that sometimes the security wouldn't show up, and she had to get her boyfriend or her husband help out. He's been in the military, blah 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 blah. He's done security type work before. So the question is, did she run afoul of the campaign finance rules? Yes or no?
Yeah,
that's the question. And then secondly, is she vulnerable because she's spending all this money for her own security, but then she's talking about defunding the police, and crime is going up in St. Louis. Crime is going up so badly that the mayor is saying she wants to hold businesses responsible for crime, like businesses like convenience stores, gas stations, so on and so forth. That's how much crime is going up in St. Louis, and that could become I think it could potentially become a campaign issue. Where her detractors will come out on this campaign finance issue, I don't know. I mean, I would. Yeah. Either she did or she didn't. Which one? Where do you think this is something that people can overlook, or because
you know what? Honestly, I think if you ask her constituents, they don't care. It's one of these. It's one of these points that, and I can certainly be wrong, but in all my years of being Black, this particular point, and because she's certainly not the first, and she won't be the last to, if she is ultimately is violated campaign finance rules, which these particular campaign finance rules are newer in the sense that campaign finance was not as much of a thing, decades ago, right? Dark pools, super PACs, these things didn't exist, arguably, even 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But at the same time, I recognize um, this type of point to where, you have to be so, I think, dialed in to politics where it becomes a make or break thing for the issues that really matter to you. And these are not points that, at least I recall, ever hearing uh, amongst Black folks kind of being debated and argued and etc. Um, you know, as we stated, right, our constituents are dealing with high crime, high unemployment environment. She used I genuinely think if you ask most Black folks, she decided to pay her husband to protect her. Okay, and like, what's the problem? Like, so she gave her husband a job. I think that's how most, like, I think that's how. I don't have any. I didn't do a survey. I didn't I have zero evidence backing my opinion up. But I think if you ask most Black folks, you tell them Cori Bush paid her, used campaign funds to pay her husband to be her security guard. Is that gonna? Are you gonna carry that into the voting booth? I don't. I don't think they are. I think the things that matter to them is the fact that they have failing schools, that they are in high crime environments, low opportunity environments. Uh, how are you helping to change the course of this community? Whether you're paying your security guard, cool. Can you put us on? How much more room does your campaign finance budget have? If you doling out jobs, how many more jobs can you hand out? I don't, and not for nothing, but frankly, a part of the system. We critique the system, rightfully so, and a lot of the critique isn't so much that these isms merely exist, whether it's nepotism, cronyism, sexism, racism, but ultimately these pockets of exclusion. But these pockets of exclusion are the foundation to many institutions within this country, from the founding of this country. But the pull yourself up by your bootstraps rhetoric and the self-determination rhetoric often likes to overlook these same exclusionary isms that helped out, frankly, white men and women. Now, there is a gap between the white men and women, but when you're talking to Black folks and about Black folks, they're in the same boat. So, in other words, should Black folks practice cronyism? Should they practice nepotism, which we know are at the core of a lot of the institutions and a lot of the ways in which industry gets ahead and the current leaders get ahead? Can we really fault them for practicing and essentially playing the same game that their counterparts are playing, but they just may be playing it better because they've been playing it longer? They play it better because they're better funded. They play it better because they understand the rules, because their last name, their bloodlines have been a part of the very foundation when the rules were being written. Right? So can we fault the rookie for coming into the game and not being able to play like a 5-year veteran.
Okay, man. That's a fair. Those are fair
you know,
points, but
so,
those are fair points. But those are fair. Go ahead.
yeah. But like, so to be honest, in my heart of hearts, I don't think our constituents care that much. Does it impact her ability to do for them? Does it impact her ability to represent them? And I think that's what matters to most of her constituents. They are trying, they are living a life where economic opportunity is stifled. Folks are trying to get ahead, by way of jobs, by way of entrepreneurial opportunities. When we look at the majority of Black folks, Black people are largely conservative in our living. We see that study after study, whether you look at the wealth habits of even wealthy Black families. These are largely like the ways in which they gain their wealth. The majority of them was not entrepreneurship. It was by being
Okay.
highly paid employees. So in other
Okay.
words, look at the fact patterns throughout the Black community. Not everybody's trying to be the next Zuckerberg, the next Musk, trying to be these billionaires and innovators of industry. Most Black folks are trying to live the American dream, right? The white picket fence, the house, have a family, have safe schools for their children to attend, have opportunities for their children to grow into once they get out of school, and just live lives unbothered, right? Not taking advantage of folks. So, in other words, if we did do a poll of her constituents, I'm willing to bet that more than likely these are the things that are important to our constituents, right?
Yeah, but that's not a proxy for anything, though, right? On what her constituents think. Let me finish. Either she broke campaign finance rules or she didn't, because if there was a proxy for something like what your constituents think, I'm not trying to be try to anything, but I'm saying you think of election fraud, January 6th events, because you wrote a speech, you made a speech, and some people went in with their company badges on, when said we're gonna storm the Capitol. Business fraud, paying somebody hush money. If you're gonna be ticky-tack, Democrats gonna be ticky-tack with Donald Trump. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, is it not?
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? So is this not chicken? Is this not chicken come home to roost? Because I don't remember Cori Bush saying that these are just baseless political attacks. I don't remember her standing up for Donald Trump. But now when the shoe's on the other foot, and this is not subjective. Either she did it or she didn't. When shoes on the other foot, all of a sudden these are baseless attacks, and these are conservative Republicans coming after me. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's not, and you don't hear Biden or the Democrats taking a hard line on this.
Listen,
I think it's much ado about nothing too, but it's gonna get headlines from in the media. And I noticed that Mr. Panadol and Wesley Bell haven't said anything about it because I guess they're waiting for the ultimate outcome. And I hate to see her get dinged for something ticky tack, but you look at all these trials Donald Trump is going through.
No, it's here's the thing, because they're all fair points, right? That, in other words, you can't have two justice systems, right? Like, we have two justice systems. We're back to Jim Crow. We're back to black codes. Despite Louisiana and Mississippi's strong efforts to bring back Jim Crow era laws. But it's I guess on a human level, right? We also have to realize that because black folks are essentially not necessarily late to the party, but have been historically denied by and large. There have been few folks over, the first 100 years post Reconstruction that have been able to get into positions of power, especially political power. But for the masses, the opportunities have been limited. And those opportunities are now opening up farther, more and more, right? And more black folks are now entering into these spaces, and it's becoming more normal, in other words. And again, we're going to, in the bigger picture, black folks are still rookies to the game.
What is this? What is this rank? What, I mean, that's all. I mean, it's all facts. And her name starts with Cori, starts with a C, and Bush starts with a B. Those are all facts. But what is this ranked in terms of the indictments against Donald Trump? What are these? What is this rank? Where's it ranked? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't remember Cori Bush getting her dander up when Trump's she was making a speech and calling a riot. I don't remember her getting her dander up over it.
100%.
And I know blacks are late to the party and all this other stuff. And she's late to the party and generational wealth and blah 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 and black codes. I get it. I don't remember Cori Bush getting her dander up over Donald Trump being accused of rigging an election down in Georgia after he basically which he has a right to question the election results, which were kind of squirrely given all the mail-in votes. She didn't say a word, and nobody from the squad said a word.
No, I get it.
We all grown folks here.
No, true. Here's the thing: if we say that we are a nation of laws, right, and if that's true, then those laws must be equally applied. All right. And that's the point that's being made. That's not incorrect. In other words, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. You make your bed, right? You pick your fights. Cori Bush picked her fight. She decided to stay out of the fight because it would have arguably been political suicide. For her as a progressive, for her as a liberal, to come out, and even from the identity politics lens, not just a liberal and progressive, but specifically a woman and a black woman, right, to come out when Democrats and progressives alike were largely chanting, "Get him out. Get him out." Democrat. How much we've talked about the only response that Democrats had to Trump or any question of what are you going to do for us for my vote is get him out. What about education reform? Get Trump out. So what? Suicide, in other words, for her to come out and defend and essentially speak against this witch hunt that we watched happen for 3 of the 4 years of his administration, and that's this is my there is no justification for that, because again, we know that we're supposed to be a nation of laws, but we also know that we are not a nation of equally applicable laws.
I get what I'm only. My only point is this. This is my point. She's in a position. Cori Bush is in position of power. Fani Willis is in a position of power. She's acting helpless, like they're attacking me. You're the DA, lady. Right. Cori Bush is a congresswoman. I'm saying the reality is this: we've been complaining about all these. Trump has been impeached twice. He made history. Look, he was impeached twice. Look, he's the first president to have a criminal trial. Look, y'all, he made history again in over 200 some years. indictment after indictment after indictment, trial after trial after trial. I don't see Trump's hardcore followers and people, some certain people in the media are apoplectic. This guy's got to go through this.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make Trump a political pawn. And maybe my only point is that I think the Republicans are going to make Cori Willis a political pawn. And they're going to say she's using her office she's trading her office for sex. Resources to trade her office for sex. Yeah. She's a Fani Willis. She's a Fani Willis of Missouri, and that she's no better than Donald Trump. And they're gonna bang Biden hard. So you came after Trump for election interference, starting an insurrection. Now, how come you're so silent on Cori Bush? If she has to be a political pawn, so be it. This is the environment the Democrats created.
Well,
this environment, Maxine Waters, John Lewis, the guy from Baltimore. This is the environment they created over the past since 2016 when Trump. Right. All I'm saying is she may be a political pawn. That's all I'm saying.
No, listen. I hold zero water for Democrats and frankly Republicans alike. They did help to create this environment. Both Democrats and Republicans have been eating from the trough, the same trough that we have been talking about for at least the last 5 years, where the Fed has been pumping money exclusively in the pockets of their friends. Their friends are registered Democrats and registered Republicans. So I hold no water.
Okay, this is where I want to get. This is where I want to get to.
They did. This is in other words to this environment.
I got it. This is what I want to get to. This is what I want to get to. Given, her potential campaign, whether it's ticky-tack or not, her potential campaign finance issues, and all the funding against her, which some people could consider unfair too. All the funding against her to fund Wesley Bell, and the corporate media are banging hard on the squad, given her potential campaign finance issues. Mm-hmm. And it's given something the Republicans, Fox News, America First and maybe even potentially Trump could chew their teeth into. And high crime in St. Louis, and unemployment in St. Louis, and Wesley Bell, and Maria Chappelle-Nadal, who probably has more experience than those two people combined. Is she vulnerable? Is Cori Bush vulnerable? Yes or no?
1,000%. She is vulnerable. Okay. And frankly, she has to eat it, right? Like if the investigation comes back and finds that she did violate campaign finance laws, in order to maintain public confidence in that position, irrespective of who's there, right? She has to eat it. Even if we don't like it, even if we, just 5 minutes ago, not even 5 minutes ago, it was 2 minutes ago, there's a host of justification, right? Of even if they find her guilty, much in the same sentiment that Fani Willis is using for her defense. Here are these things that have contributed to the environment in which we've had to fight and ultimately work this system in ways in which our white counterparts have not had to. In other words, we have to take risks politically that others don't. We have to bend where others don't because we have historically been marginalized. And in order to get to this point, we have to take larger risk. And while all of that is true, it's true. The position itself is greater than the individual. So let me be clear on that. And the position itself demands accountability. So if the investigation yields that she is in violation of campaign finance laws, at that point, she has to face the consequences of such. If for no other reason, because her position demands it. Because once confidence erodes even further, what made the squad is because they represented voter confidence, right? They represented integrity in a system that is deeply lacking such. They were supposed to be the hope for the future, that we can reform the swamp, right? That everyone likes to call DC, from Republicans to Democrats. They all call it a swamp. And yet they're the ones that sit in the swamp. But that's what the squad represented. That these are people that came from the people, they were voted by the people, and they truly represent the people's interests. So just from that alone, in other words, of what the squad was supposed to represent, the position demands accountability when you misstep. Although we know all of the reasons that we just covered, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this, I guess at 20,000 foot level, this is my point. That whether she gets whether they rule against her or not, whether she ran afoul of campaign finance, what have you, this seems kind of gray. But the Republicans are going to go after this lady. Given this potential issue or non-issue, the funding against her, which is real, vitriol towards the squad, a lot of media coverage relative to the squad. Is the squad for real? Is it
right.
The emperor has no clothes? Because we can't. Only way you can prove they're for real, they have to set policy and get policy done in Washington. They have to do something that improve the material conditions of the lives of their constituents, and not talk about squad up when they get reelected, and not do all this performative stuff. And can they do something to improve the material lives of their constituents? I think this race in Missouri, a lot of eyes going to be on it, because it's one of the first ones. I think she could be, and people think she could be vulnerable against Miss Chappelle and Wesley Bell. And the media is gonna sink their teeth into this issue relative to Cori Bush. They're pissed off about all these indictments against Trump, and all this what they think are distractions versus Donald Trump, and trying to keep him from running for re-election. They're pissed off about it, and they want some retribution. The retribution could be in the form of Cori Bush. All odds are going to be on this congressional race in Missouri. It could be a bellwether for the Midwest, because people are trying to figure out, is the squad for real? Maria Chappelle, Wesley Bell, Cori Bush, right in the middle of it, and we're brought to you by Trump and the G. We're going to stay on top of it. So that's basically it. That's Trump and the G. It's Cori Bush to Fani, Willis of Missouri. Thank you for listening. Thank you.